Hi there, welcome back to House of Horror Recaps, and today we will be recapping a 2024 horror film, Oddity. The movie begins with a woman, Danny, working on what seems like a trap door. An alarm rings and the shutter is immediately clicked upon her entrance, as if she is trying to capture something paranormal. She retrieves her jacket from her car while being alone in this country house. Walking down the halls, she finally receives phone reception and smiles. Meanwhile, at a mental hospital, a patient can be seen drawing on the stairs, who is then later joined by a helper, Ivan, who sternly orders him back inside. We then get to meet Dr. Ted, Danny's husband, who gives Danny a call and receives good news from her that there's signal in the house. As night falls, she leaves the house to retrieve her jacket from her car. She then hears a noise and decided to shine her flashlight around, only to find nothing. Right after locking the door, she hears a creaking noise, and as she slides open the peephole, she sees a hooded man with a glass eye. Looking left and right, the hooded man lets Danny know that she's in danger, as he saw someone slipped into the house through the door she left open when retrieving her jacket. She remains skeptical and warns him that her husband would be home soon. The hooded man then said that her husband works the night shifts, indicating that he is one of his patients. He then begins to panic and demands her to let him in. She becomes paranoid of someone being inside with her, and eventually lets him in, which is also the last time she is seen alive. Next, the patient from before, can be seen drawing in his room, who is then distracted by sounds of screaming and banging. He opens up the door to check on the commotion, only to be frightened and immediately closing it. He quickly hides under the bed and the door swings open, hearing more of the screaming and banging that came from outside. He hears footsteps coming towards him, only for it to suddenly disappear and leave. He carefully steps into the other room and finds the patient, with the glass eye, dead in a puddle of blood, with his face no longer recognizable. 1 year later, Dr. Ted pays a visit to Danny's twin sister, Darcy, a blind psychic who runs a shop which sells supposedly cursed objects, with one of the items being a cursed hotel bell, which summons a spirit of the bell boy to kill whoever rang the bell. Ted expresses his skepticism and Darcy ensures that it certainly does work, as it has already taken the lives of 2 people. Ted then gives Darcy the glass eye and expresses his confusion in her request for the glass eye. She then expresses her interest to see what was going on in that patient's mind the night her sister died, through the usage of her psychic abilities. The 2 proceeds to make plans to meet up for dinner soon, as it has been a year since Danny's death. Ted then reveals that he has a new girlfriend whom he met at work, causing an awkward goodbye for the both of them. After that, Darcy proceeds to close shop for the day. Back at home, she unwraps the handkerchief, revealing the patient's glass eye. She closes her eye and began a psychic reading through the glass eye, looking through the events of that night. She caught a glimpse of the patient with her sister, however, an image of a masked man flashes by. She immediately rushes back to her store and comes towards a trunk. Next, we see Ted waking up, now living with his new girlfriend, Yana, who complains that she has a hard time sleeping alone while Ted is out doing his night shifts. Ted reassures her that he will be going on a regular shift soon. Yana then shows him Danny's camera that she found and a picture that she took, in which upon closer inspection, seems to have caught a faint figure which looks like Danny. Ted dismisses it and Yana then recalls that last night, when she was going to bed, right after turning off the lights, she immediately feels on edge and as she looks back, she sees Danny's spirit standing down the hallway, causing her to quickly turn the lights back on. Ted still dismisses it and lets her know that he deals with enough crazy people at work and doesn't need one at home too. Yana feels insulted and lets him know that she's only telling him what she saw. She blames it on her lack of sleep ever since she has moved to this house and would like to go back to her place until Ted's schedule changes. Ted obliges and makes it clear that his dead wife is not haunting this house. He then compares her to Danny's sister, Darcy, who is always going on about ghosts. Speaking of Darcy, Yana points him to a trunk that Darcy sent over while he was asleep. Looking out the peephole, Darcy can be seen standing by a car outside. Ted guides her inside to meet Yana and both of them seems rather confused to Darcy suddenly showing up. Darcy then reminds him of their conversation the other day and today is exactly 1 year since her sister has passed. Ted tries to indirectly usher Darcy out of the house by saying that he is going to work and Yana going back to the city soon. Darcy seems to be fine with being in the house alone, and Yana quietly expresses her disbelief towards Ted. Darcy opens the trunk and reveals that it originally belonged to her mother and was passed down to her, and now, to Ted. Darcy asks to be led to the restroom and he apologizes for the confusion. She lets him know that she is fine staying at home alone. Yana expresses her disapproval and Ted tells her to just deal with it as she will be spending the night in the city anyway. As soon as Yana gets ready to leave, Darcy requests her to prepare some food for her before she leaves. She then notices that the trunk is wide open and seated at the table is a large wooden figure. She asks Darcy why did she take it out of the trunk, in which she insisted she didn't. Yana brushes it off and tries to leave, until she realizes that she is unable to find her car keys. After checking all around the house, Yana feels that Darcy must be responsible for her missing keys. She informs Darcy and Darcy is elated that she'll be staying as she is unable to go back to the city for the night. Yana makes some food for Darcy and both of them began chatting. Turns out Yana has already known Ted for about 2 years at work and nothing happened when Danny was still alive. Darcy proceeds to further explain her psychic abilities, like how she can read objects just by touching it. For example, she was able to find out that her client's husband has been unfaithful just by touching his wedding ring. Yana, much like Ted, expresses her skepticism and Darcy asks if she likes staying out here alone, which she then admits that she doesn't like it and cannot help but think of what happened to Darcy's sister. Darcy then reveals the truth, where it was actually not the patient that killed her sister, and we get a flashback of that night where Danny did not actually open the door and the patient giving up on trying to get inside, but heading back to town to call the police. Later, she checks the peephole again to find out he's finally gone. However, odd creaking noises can still be heard from above. She proceeds to grab a flashlight and a hammer to go towards the source of the noise. She scans the room and spotted her camera. She takes it and climbed into her tent to look through the pictures to see if she caught anything. Sure enough, she sees a picture of a man wearing a white mask, as seen from her sister's vision. She prepares herself for what is about to happen as she unzips the tent, only to be greeted with nothing but darkness. The man in the white mask suddenly appears, took a few steps back and sat down, staring at Danny, before going into the tent. We are then greeted with a bloody mess from the inside of the tent, while the killer sat back down outside the tent. Yana is left confused at the fact that it was someone else that killed Danny and not the patient. She is also stunned that Darcy had this information, while Darcy shows her the patient's glass eye, while emphasizing that personal belongings works best for her psychic abilities to work. Back at the hospital, Ted receives a call from Yana, revealing that she is stuck at the house and Darcy is acting strange, saying things like how she's a psychic and how the killer was not the patient, but Ivan. Ted becomes flustered and declares that Darcy is not well, and will get her checked out. He then tells her to get some sleep while he makes some calls. Yana then asks how does Darcy know of Ivan in the beginning. Ted is unclear as well and promises her that he will be there as soon as possible. Yana finds out that Darcy has fallen asleep, only to look down and find the wooden figure staring right at her. Frightened, she drops her phone and backs off the balcony, only to find the wooden figure back to his original position. Yana sneaks up to a sleeping Darcy, then goes to examine the wooden figure, trying to figure out how did it manage to move. Upon further examination, she finds 5 holes on the back of its head with a symbol in the middle. Using a pair of forceps, she pulls out items like a lock of white hair, photographs, tooth and a vial of blood. Darcy is awake and angrily tells Yana to put it back, which she quickly does and turn in for the night. After Yana is gone, Darcy goes to the table and positions herself much like the wooden figure. Unable to sleep, Yana looks through the old photos Danny's camera. She plays an old video of Danny and Ted. She decides to turn off the light and replay the video, only to see a dead Danny in the video instead of Ted. She drops the camera and it flashes to reveal the ghost of Danny, telling her to run. She turns on the lights and ran downstairs, grabbed a knife as she hears rapid footsteps coming towards her. She hears a thud coming from the trunk and finally finds her keys inside. As she steps outside the house, the lights go off and Danny's ghostly face appears, which is a cue for Yana to finally leave the house. Later, Ted comes back to a dark and quiet house. He finds Darcy on the second floor and kneeling by the trap door. Ted asks about Yana and Darcy guess that it must have been Danny who frightened her off. Ted relays what Yana has told him about earlier, that Ivan was the one who killed his sister, and maintains that it was the patient that was the one that killed her sister. She then rebukes it by saying that the patient was the one who actually tried to save her. Ted tries to convince her that she is seeing things and warns to get her committed if she is dangerous. She proceeds to reveal that it was Ted that tasked Ivan to have Danny killed. Then, a flashback to that exact moment where Ted tasks Ivan to have Danny killed, and the patient eavesdropping through the air vents. Darcy then reveals that she has actually planned to kill him from the beginning but now thinks it would be better to expose him and ruin his life. Ted tries to convince that he's innocent and tells Darcy he is going to meet with the investigator who was in charge of their case and have him explain the evidence to her. Ted returns to the hospital and calls his cell phone. While Darcy goes to retrieve it, she falls through a trap door that Ted removed, landing on the stone floor below. Ted then have Ivan visit the house to ensure Darcy's fate, only to be brutalized by the wooden figure, which Darcy appears to supernaturally move before succumbing to her wounds. Next, having survived the attack, Ivan wakes up, tied to a bed, in the hospital. To make sure that Ivan does not confess to his crime, Ted sets free another patient, which turns out to be a cannibal, to kill Ivan. Now that everything is over, Ted returns to the house and gets a call from Yana, who does not want to have anything to do with him and his haunted house anymore. He sees a package at his door, delivered from Darcy's shop. Inside it he finds the call bell, which Darcy said that it was haunted by a bellboy and kills anyone that rings it. Ted rings the bell and looks around his surrounding for a while. He chuckles for scaring himself and smirks, not knowing that the spirit of the bellboy is behind him, ready to seal his fate. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe and turn on your notifications, so that you can watch more videos like these.